Good afternoon, everyone. I'll now call to order this Brantford Special City Council meeting. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Certainly. Sorry, Councillor Weaver.
Present.
Councillor Vanderstel.
Present.
Councillor Sless.
Present.
Councillor McCreary.
Here.
Councillor Martin.
Here.
Councillor Carpenter.
Here.
Councillor Antosky.
Here.
Councillor Van Tilburg.
Present.
Councillor Wall.
Present.
And Mayor Davis.
Present. Sorry, my problem with my volume. Can't get the volume. All right, I'll just pretend I can lip read. Somebody say something to test this.
Testing 1, 3.
No.
Test.
There, okay, good. All right, sorry about that. I don't usually use this headset. So, of course, we have some procedural rules, as always, given that it's a virtual meeting. So all members remain muted while we're in the meeting to reduce feedback. All web cameras have to remain on so that you can count for quorum. Staff are requested to join the video meeting as and when required. Any member should indicate that they wish to speak by pressing the raise hand button in the participant list column. In the event that a connection service interruption occurs, we will recess for up to 15 minutes to reestablish a quorum. All members will participate this afternoon using eScribe, and the clerk will announce the voting results. And members of the public who register as delegates are able to take part electronically via webcam or via the telephone for the meetings. All rules for delegations under the city's procedural bylaw continue to apply. So does any member have a pecuniary interest they want to declare on an item that's on this afternoon's agenda? Physically raise your hand if you do. Not seeing any raised hands. So there's no delegations or presentations on today's agenda. So we have 2 items for consideration before us today. Actually 3 depending on a vote. So just a reminder that we each have 2 4-minute speaking opportunities, as this is the first time these items have come to council. So item 4.1 is a funding request to undertake a development charges background study. And Councillor Martin, I understand you have the motion. If you could please read that and state who your seconder is.
Okay, I move, seconded by Councillor McCreary, Alpha, that report 2020-511 requesting funds to undertake a development charges background study be received, and Bravo, that council approve the non-competitive procurement services to compete a development charge background study pursuant to section 4.02 echo of the purchasing policy to Hemson Consulting Limited for the upset limit of $125,000 plus HST, and that the cost of the development charges background study be funded as follows. 1, $48,800 from development charges, capital growth studies reserve fund, and 2, the remaining amount up to $76,200 to be borrowed from development charges parking reserve fund and repaid through future development charge receipts for capital studies. And C, that City Council direct the City Treasurer and the Manager of Purchasing to execute the required agreement. And Mr. Mayor, I have an amendment that I'll bring when the time is appropriate.
Okay, so the way I'm going to handle that is similar to how Councillor Carpenter did that last week. And so unless anybody has any objection, I'll ask you to proceed with the amendment at this point. Of course, we have two speaking discussions on the amendment, and then once the amendment either passes or fails, we then have full two speaking opportunities on the either amended or unamended resolution. So, yeah, Councillor Sluss?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I was trying to get your attention a little earlier, just to let members of council and the public know that Councillor Utley won't be attending this afternoon. He's dealing with a family medical situation, and it's quite likely he won't be here this evening as well.
Thank you very much for stating that, Councillor Sluss, and I should look at the gallery view, I guess. So I don't think I heard any objections to that procedure process. So Councillor Martin, why don't you put your amendment on the floor if you've got a seconder?
Thank you. I move, seconded by Councillor McCurry, that the clause D be amended to read that D, that staff be directed to draft a plan to phase out the exemption from development charges in the downtown area and present to council for consideration. And if I may, just speaking to that, the premise of development charges is that development should pay for itself, that the taxpayer should not be stuck with the cost of development. And I feel that should apply to the downtown as well. And the only way that will truly happen is if we phase out the development charge exemption that's available now in the downtown. We have quite a bit of development happening in the downtown, and there's a lot of potential development for the downtown that might get spurred on to happen a little quicker if they know they can beat the full development charges by getting their project started before the exemption gets phased out. So I'm hoping that it'll be beneficial in multiple ways, and hopefully council can support this amendment to improve the motion that's on the floor. Thank you.
Okay, so second by Councillor McCreary. If anybody else wants to speak, push the raised hand button. Councillor Van Tilburg.
No, I won't be supporting the motion. Most downtowns, I believe, have waived development charge fees for their downtown core areas in order to inspire development to take root there. When you start calculating the increased cost to those factors, I think what you might do is you may get that rush, but you will then get stop development. It's if it was an easy thing to develop in the downtown core versus going into the suburbs, it would have happened. You have to have these incentives to make it work. In fact, we actually need more incentives, and that's what's being worked on. I'll tell you what, if the report comes back with the people that we put in charge of this, and they say they do the study, and they make good cause for why that development charges should be dropped from the downtown, then that's certainly something for councillors to consider. But I don't believe that an arbitrary amendment, whether right or wrong, in my opinion at this time, is the proper move. I would suggest that we reject the amendment and wait till we get more information that might back up that amendment.
Okay. Next, Councillor Sluss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just heard the amendment. I haven't been able to read it, but I think the amendment just asked for a report to come back with that information. Is that not correct?
The wording is be directed to draft a plan to phase out the exemption from development charge in the downtown area and present to council for consideration.
So I would think, having read it now, that what we're approving today is to receive what the plan would look like, and then at that point have the discussion as to whether we should implement it or not implement it. We're not approving that plan right now. We're simply asked to have a look at that plan and see what that would all entail. The one thing I would question, if we're doing that, we currently have grants on that to promote downtown as far as activity there in the building sector. So if we're looking at eliminating this incentive, would that entail a review of the entire incentive program for activity in the downtown? Or would this just be for the DCs?
I think this is the DCs. Perhaps Joel can help us, but I think, Joel, can you remind us, I think we've got a report re the community improvement proposal for a graduated tax relief over 5 years for residential properties. Anyways, what's coming our way later this year on a kind of similar subject.
I might have to get planning to come on and speak to exactly with respect to the community improvement plans for the downtown area and those boundaries. With respect to what's being proposed by way of an amendment is specific to the development charges exemption in the downtown area. So that is part of the current development charge bylaw. There is a defined exemption area within that. If the amendment was approved, then we would be looking as part of the scope of work and what we would be doing with Hempson as far as an area-wide development charges background study. We could look into the merits of that exemption, and we would bring that back to council for a decision later.
Okay. Anything else, Councillor Sluss?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Antosky.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Sluss said a lot of what I was going to say. I'm open to getting more information. For me, it's a big part of timing. Certainly, if we were to be discussing today to eliminate these, I would not be in favor, because what we've tried to stimulate is happening. We're getting some more interest down there, and the timing of this would be critical, which I think is why a phased approach is being suggested. So I'm open to getting the information and seeing the merits and the disadvantages and making a decision from there.
Councillor Vanderstel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If the mover and seconder are considering it friendly, could we also ask staff to include in the draft plan or report that comes back to us examples of other municipalities who have done the same phase out process with a downtown core development fee schedule?
I'd consider that friendly.
Councillor McCurry, you okay with that?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Councillor Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Having read the resolution seems to be prescriptive. It's saying that staff will do a report that will provide us with a phase out. It doesn't say we would like to get the information that includes the downtown funding as part of the background study. That, you know, I think the confusion is the phrasing of the word. The wording says that staff will do. So can we get a clarification from staff? Because I heard Ms. Daniels say they could include it as part of the background study, but the resolution doesn't necessarily say that. It's not the way I'm reading it. Maybe I could get a comment from Ms. Daniels.
Alice, can you help us on that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we would certainly need our consultants to be able to help us develop the information and some of the background work, and in looking what some other municipalities have done, and whether this would be something that would be recommended. So we would need to have this as part of the background study work, just to do the investigation and plan out our recommendations to council.
And when development charges are paid, now the province has changed that, I believe. It used to be payable upon building permit, but is it now payable as part of the planning process?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the date that they're payable hasn't changed. It would still be paid on building permit, but the date on which the rates would be calculated is now the date of site plan application or application for zoning. So it's an earlier point in time where those fees could be set.
And when you come back to us, could you, for council, could you give us the number of development charges that were waived for 1 Wellington Street, that high-rise apartment building in the downtown core, so that we can understand?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I actually have that information. That was something council had requested during the last bylaw update for development charges. So with respect to 1 Wellington, at the time that building permit was taken out in 2018, and it was just over $1 million in total development charges for the municipal portion. So that wouldn't be the education portion, But for the municipal portion was just over $1 million that they were exempted.
So that building itself would have provided $1 million extra money for the city's reserves in the development charges area. And some of that would include housing, I would take it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, housing is one of the services that we collect for, yes.
I'm not surprised that Councilor Martin brought this forward. He's made it pretty clear his position on funding for downtown and for development charges. So I'll, as a Councilor Slush used to say, I'll be interested to see how I vote after the discussion.
Oh, right. So Councillor Wall, you're next.
My first question would be, would this have any impact on businesses or people who have applied for it now? Like, would existing stuff that's happening be grandfathered in, or?
I think probably.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, any permit that has already been withdrawn for which the development charges have been calculated, though, those are done. So there wouldn't be any additional funds that would be necessary. So this is just to set development charge rates going forward, especially in light of the city's impending approval of a new official plan and potential development into the expansion area lands. Definitely, we want to undertake this work to set those charges that better reflect the servicing that's required, which would likely result in an increase, but certainly anybody who's already obtained building permit is not impacted by any increased rates.
Is there anybody in the pipeline, or is it kind of like a very cut and dry process?
I would need to refer probably to planning on those that are in the pipeline.
Can you help us in that, Lucy? And could you also just confirm the geographic area?
That'd be regarding the amendment, the geographic area of the amendment or of the?
No, the area that's exempt right now from development.
Oh, through you to Mayor. The area that's exempt is, well, it is the downtown core. And the other question about whether or not we have applications in the pipe, at this time we do not, as far as it relates to the expansion lands, but we are expecting to receive an application fairly soon. Certainly, they will be coming in right after the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing has approved the official plan.
So then my question.
Sorry, go ahead, Councilman.
I want to see where this goes. I think it's worth looking into. It doesn't mean I support it, but I would definitely, I don't know how I would amend it into this amendment or if it could possibly be friendly, but if somebody was already working on this and was planning on applying to this, and this was already a part of their proposal, I would like to make sure that people, are protected in some way. So is there a way to have that in this wording?
Well, I would think the plan would certainly address that timing, but Mr. Hutchins, can you add anything to that?
Just to Councilor Wall's question, this is a process. This isn't going to happen the next few weeks. Hemson will be hired and there'll be public inputs into this whole development review charges. So there'll be public meetings as well as the area specific development charges. So this is about a 4 or 5 month process at the best of times. So we want to get ahead of it because of what's going on with the boundary, the official plan and the boundary lands. That's why it's here with you today. So it's 4 to 5, 6 months out of process to go through this. So most of the developers will know the timing and when to get their applications in before or what have you.
Thank you.
Councilor McCurry.
Mayor, thank you. I'm happy to support this and second it for my ward mate. It's an issue that he's been speaking logically about for a number of years now, and I'm pleased to see that tonight it's going to be incorporated into what we get out of our fee for Hemson in this respect. Councillors will note that it does ask them to produce a plan, but it does come back to council for endorsement. So regardless of what is prepared, it's all up to us at a later date as to whether or not we incorporate this. And I suspect we'll hear from some downtown developers as well with respect to what they'd like to see in future. I know we've already heard from one that's not happy with the boundary because he happened to be across the street from $1 million as opposed to being on the right side of the street. So it'll be interesting to see what comes back, and I hope it's going to be something that will be brought to us in a format that we can all still accept later on. Thank you.
Lucy, I have a question for you. So you mentioned the downtown core. Perhaps the viewers can just confirm for us what the boundaries are, which streets.
Okay, unfortunately, I can't give you the precise streets off the top. What I can do is I could try and send through the clerk a map that shows that boundary if you want to give me like 1 minute.
Sure, I think that
It might be easier visually because it's a very irregular boundary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so we don't have any other first-time speakers, so I'm not going to support it. I think it is, as Councillor Carpenter said, it's prescriptive. It, from my view of it, it reads that it creates momentum and an assumption that that's what we intend to do. Doesn't give a lot of staff direction in terms of what that might look like. Frankly, I think it's premature at this time in the middle of COVID, and the downtown development just beginning to consider such an arrangement. I certainly can see at some point that this would be something we'd want to consider. I just think this is premature. So for that reason, I won't vote for it. But Councillor Martin.
Thank you. It's been said that the downtown needs to be incentivized, and I've never believed that argument. If it's more expensive to do things in the downtown, then you pay less for the property in the first place. That all has to be factored. An intelligent developer factors into what he's willing to pay for a property, all the problems that are involved with dealing in the downtown. As for a map of the area, I'm sure that'll be included in the report that comes back to us. So I don't see that as an issue right now. The idea that we lost $1 million in development charges because of One Wellington Place, that just shows that the taxpayer had to make up that $1 million. That does not get spread amongst other development charges. The development charges can only apply to what the consultant brings back and says qualifies to charge development charges for. And any exemptions are lost. And that has to be made up by the existing property taxpayer, all the residents of all 5 wards. So as for when this would impact developments in progress, that's all up to us. We can set the start date for the phase-in at whatever time we want. We might set it out 1 year or 2 years to give them a chance to develop what they've got in plans for already. And could be over 3, 4, 5 years, but I think it's something that needs to be looked at. And by giving that kind of a time frame, anybody who has something in the works can get their plans drawn up, get everything together, and get everything in before any of the exemption disappears. So I think it's important that development pay for itself, pay for the cost of development, and this is one way to ensure that all development, including development in the downtown, does just that. And as Councillor McCurry mentioned, you have somebody upset because they're on the wrong side of the street. They're on the outside of the area. And that's going to be a problem constantly when you have this kind of politics of special interest. When you treat one group of people differently than you do others, it's called discrimination. And this takes away that discrimination. So I hope that we can support this, at least to get the report back. It's then up to council whether we accept that report or not, whether we modify it or not. And it could be that we set the start date, a year or 2 from when we get the report. So there's lots of options for this coming back, but we have no options if we don't get the report. So I hope that councillors can at least support the amendment to get the plan back, and then we can decide then whether we agree with it or not, or whether it needs to be modified. Thank you.
Councillor Van Tilburg, second speaking opportunity.
Yeah, this is prescriptive. This is directing staff to come out to have the consultant come up with a specific conclusion. And then we choose on that conclusion. It's not even an ask or a compare and complete and come back to a reason why they would do it. So that's very clear. The other part, when we talk about fairness, well, infrastructure already exists in the downtown. A lot of the new areas that we acquired in the boundary lands, which a lot of this is going to be directed at the study overall, doesn't have any infrastructure. So there is definitely a comparison difference. And sometimes when we talk about boundaries, well, we have an improvement area, and what we have been trying to do and have successfully managed to do is align those boundary of the improvement areas together. That has been the process of the last 3 years. So when we had the issues, it was because various boundaries had various lines. What you will find is that when we talk about the $1 million lost at Wellington Street, you most likely would not have had that building go up. Nothing would have happened. And other ones, the delays are because they are in the improvement areas, but we're not subject to the DC charges reduction. Thus, major slowdown, years have been delayed on this. And I got a feeling that you'll see people run away from the city of Brantford once they know that those are gone. So there's limited people that do downtown development, but they've got lots of places to go. There's a lot of downtown. So what brings people here? Having a competitive environment with one city against the other, that definitely needs to be in there. But again, this is not an ask. This is a prescription telling us what we are to receive. And then when we receive it, we'll just decide, well, I don't think that's actually a fair proposition. It is a proposition. But really, at the end of the day, when you vote for this, you are voting for a process in motion. And I believe it will be a very difficult one to stop once that comes back. And then we will have to deal with the fallout from the conclusion. That's my opinion.
Okay. Councilor McCurry.
Mayor, thank you. I wonder if I could ask to see the amendment put back on the floor. It appears to be in danger because of some wording, which I think we can tweak on the fly here.
Yep, we have it up now.
With the leave of the mover, I would suggest that we substitute the word draft optional plans, including a phase out of the exemption from development charges in the downtown area, which I would hope would satisfy everybody, that staff could then produce a range of options for us, and that would be one of them.
Okay, so well, hang on. First of all, it's Councillor Martin's motion. So Councillor Martin, do you accept what Councillor McCurry is suggesting as a seconder friendly amendment?
Yes, I do, because I think that improves the chances of this passing, and we need to have the information.
All right, so we can just have, Madam Clerk, do you know? Yeah, could you repeat that, Councillor McCurry? So you were saying insert words.
Well, I'll do my best, Mayor. I didn't write it down, and you know how it gets to be when you get to be our age. The staff be directed to draft options, including a plan to phase out the exemption, from development charges in the downtown area. I hope you got it that time.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to sit here and wait for the clerk to make that draft change. Can you show that in italics so we can? No. Draft option between the plan.
There should be a comma after exemption.
Draft options kind of think that exception. So it'd be comma and then replace from with replace for. Instead of from, it'd be for, wouldn't it?
Yes. So Mayor, if I may just add, I think that should resolve the the reservations that folks had about this being proscriptive. Instead, what it does is it would allow them to produce a number of options for us, including the option that Councilor Martin is interested in seeing. It's all coming back to us, folks. Let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater here. It may be a worthwhile endeavor for us to consider. And I would hope that everybody would support it now that Councilor Martin and I have listened to everybody's input and although not suggestive, certainly leading to the suggestion that we amend it to make it satisfactory.
So Councillor Martin, can you confirm that you're content with that friendly amendment?
Yes, I am. Very happy.
Councillor Carpenter, second speaking opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I don't know if that helps a lot. I certainly would be helpful if the original motion was simply to include the community improvement area, which is the CIP program for the downtown. But it included that area as part of the development review. That's all we really had to do, and that those reports would have come back. I don't think we had to have the phase in. We still have all those options. Having said that, it's just 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But at the same time, though, we're about to tonight talk about development on Market Street, Chatham Street. It's just outside this area, and we have a large development coming forward further down Market Street that's outside this area that doesn't receive development charges rebates as well. So there are development happening outside of the area that receives rebates. So, I'm inclined to agree with Councilor Martin. The time of Brantford giving out grants to developers, that time may be over. Where we seem to be the place where everybody wants to be. In fact, now that's why it's important that we get our development charges going as quickly as possible so that when our official plan is finished, we can reap the rewards of having top-notch development that's paying for everything that the city has on their list. So why it's important for us to have all those things in our capital budget going forward as part of this estimates committee, because that's what some of the things that they got to be there for 5 years, as I understand it, before they can be included in your development charges. So we need to have some long-range planning and thinking in our community, whether we can afford it or not. You put it in the capital budget, and the development charges review will help pay for that. So the development charge review is important and needs to be done as soon as possible so that we can make developers pay their fair share, and they're willing to do that. But it's time that the taxpayers stop paying. Thank you.
All right, Councilor Carpenter. So I'll say for a second time, just take my second speaking opportunity. I'll set the clock here. I'm not going to go 4 minutes. So I thank Councillor McCrew for making that suggestion, because now my view is it's not presumptive or prescriptive, and that's more acceptable to me. We'll see what the options are and make a decision sometime later, I guess, in a couple of months. So anyone else for second go around? Councillor Vanderstelt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too am interested in having all the data in front of us prior to having the chance to make the decision on this topic. I think an awful lot of other factors will have to be taken into consideration. We're alluding to the costs of keeping this program in place. We're alluding to the fact that it's a very good idea to get rid of it. But what we don't know is the specifics. For how long will we be out? How much money? Has anyone else ever tried to do this in any other municipality? Was that challenged? To what degree was it challenged? What kind of business protest was there? Did councils change their mind in other situations where they reinstated after rescinding? This is all valuable information that I would like to see. I would like council to have in front of them before we enter into a discussion based on the pros and cons of this program. So I'm looking forward to the report that we see. I'm looking forward to an exhaustive amount of details that help us better make a decision. I think everyone is fully cognizant of the fact of what our financial constraints and difficulties are, especially in the last few months. And it would behoove us to at least entertain the possibility of where we could be getting a little bit more funding for a number of different things, especially considering where our infrastructure deficit is placed right now. So I look forward to the report, and I'm fairly certain how I know I'm going to vote after it arrives. Thank you.
You're on mute, Mayor.
Not seeing any other raised hands, Madam Clerk. Let's call the vote on this amendment.
Councillor Weaver, we're just waiting for your response.
Yeah, I got kicked out. I'm just logging back in.
Certainly.
I'll vote in the affirmative.
Certainly, I'll mark that for you.
Just came through.
The amendment to item 4.1 funding request to undertake development charges background study has carried out a recorded vote of 10-0. Those voting in favor, Councillors Weaver, Vanderstel, Sless, McCreary, Martin, Carpenter, Antosky, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis.
Okay, so we now have the resolution as amended. Up for discussion. Councillor McCreary.
Mayor, thank you. A question through you to staff. I wonder, could someone tell us how long Hemson has been providing us services, and when the last time was that they engaged in a competitive process for procurement?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so typically we undertake a development charges background study every 5 years. The 2014 background study was awarded to Hemson through a competitive process. The 2019 one was, we sought council's approval to single source, as we're doing again for 2020.
In as much as the work is not continuous and is built upon a previous report, can you indicate why we would not have gone to the market to do this on a competitive basis?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, our previous experience has indicated there really only are 2 players in the market that do development charge background studies in the province. Hemson, certainly through this past year, has done was awarded separate work for us to develop a fiscal strategy for the settlement area expansion lands. So that work is something that's going to be presented to council in December. There's a lot of tie-in and what we feel are efficiencies to be gained just through all the information that has been shared with them already, that this is the most effective and cost-efficient approach.
Okay, so sorry, you said their first work for us was 2014?
I don't believe that was their first work, but the 2014 study was the last one that we awarded through a competitive process. The 2019 one, we did not award through a competitive process, and it's suggested that we would single source this work as well. Just as quick on the heels of the last one, and through all the documentation and information that's been shared with them in the past 12 months with respect to the boundary expansion lands and their involvement with that this would be the most effective route for us.
Thanks.
Councillor Wall.
Okay, so we've had a number of conversations about boundaries and DC charges. This is not the first time this conversation has come before council, and the more I talk to individuals about it or city staff about it or my fellow councillors about it, this is confusing. So my question is, and maybe it can't be answered right now, but I'm going to ask it. Whose idea was it to do DC charges in the first place? I'm sure we didn't reinvent the wheel and we're the only city in Canada doing it. So where did this come from?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly development charges have been around for a long time. Many municipalities collect development charges, not all,
Sorry.
but many.
So the idea to waive the development charges, I apologize. Whose idea was it to waive the development charges?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm actually not aware for how long the city has had an exemption in their bylaw.
Could we have that
Certainly
information?
Through my involvement with 2009, and certainly since the 2009 bylaw, it's been in there. Previous, we'd have to do some research on that.
Could I request that information for before, as a part of this?
Yeah, certainly we can go back into previous bylaws and see if we can see when that was added. We can get that information out to members of council.
So then my next question would be also for a request for information specifically. I'd really like to know what our nearest neighbors, closest municipalities are doing in regarding to waiving development charges, and who's doing it, who's not doing it, the successes of it in their communities. Just because something Councillor Martin said, and he said it before, and I've heard it said by other people too, like I'm having a hard time grasping how it's fair for us to do this for one part of the city and not for other. I mean, I know I represent the downtown East Ward and Eagle Place, and this is in the best interest of those wards, but I mean, I also represent the whole city, and if we're not waiving it for everyone, then how come we're waiving it for some people? And I really want to know what that justification is. It's been said before, but I'm going to say it again. Money Sense magazine in 2020 named Brantford the number 6 place in Canada to invest in real estate. There are 5,162 municipalities in this great country of ours, 5,162, and Brantford is number 6. The whole world has its eyes on Brantford and is considering moving here, developing here, starting a business here, investing here, because all mainstream medias are talking about how great Brantford is. So when Councillor Martin says we should consider stopping this, and perhaps anybody who's considering coming here may jump and move faster to take advantage of this great program, but I still don't get it. Nobody has clearly explained to me why development charge, the exemption from development charges exists. I know we need to encourage our downtown's growth, and I know we need to encourage developers to build downtown, but the whole world has its eyes on this city. I don't necessarily know that we need to be waiving development charges anymore. And if we are, I want a really good reason why we should. That's it.
Okay. Next, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I normally question sole sourcing as well, but this is something that we need to get done reasonably quickly, because we need to get this new development charge fees in place before things really start happening in the north end. When I first got on council of the day was faced with a situation where we could have raised development charges significantly, because the report come back and said that they needed to be raised. But because builders of the day were saying, oh, people will stop buying houses if we increase development charges, which at the time was probably 0.5% of the price of the home, indicating that would stop all development, dry up the market, which was just ridiculous. Unfortunately, council of the day didn't impose the full amount of development charges it could be. And it was shortly after that they come to realize that that's money that has to be made up by the rest of the taxpayer. That goes on the general taxes that everybody pays. And thankfully, the council eventually come around and decided it was appropriate to charge the amount of development charges that we could. And that's why we need to get this report fairly quickly, so that we can get the proper development charges in place for when things start to boom in the boundary adjustment areas. So I look forward to this passing and hopefully a speedy return to the report.
Councillor Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a note to staff. Maybe staff could provide council with a Coles Note version of how development charges are calculated in the first place, so that we understand clearly why it's important for us to make sure those things are in the capital budget. And then those developers are also entitled to appeal whatever number we come up with based upon what they see as what council's doing, what is correct or not correct. For example, Oak Park Extension is part of development charges because those costs are paid for as a result of development. Not having the full BSAR in there left room for those to appeal the fact that we were charging for a BSAR we weren't intending to build. So you have to have things in your capital budget that you actually intend to build to appeal that. So the question I have for staff though is the provincial government has reduced what we can actually appeal, or not, sorry, what we can appeal, what we can actually charge development charges for. So some things have been taken out. Could you highlight when you give us the Coles note, not now, but the Coles note version of how development charges are done, the changes in provincial legislation in the last 5 years that have reduced our ability to collect development charges on certain things, and how that will impact our budget? Thank you.
Not seeing any other first-time speakers, I'll just speak to it briefly. Councillor Martin's dead on. We've seen our report. The report tells us over the next 20 years, we're going to need about $973 million, 20 years, this 20 years, $973 million in infrastructure works, and about a third of that in support of the boundary lands. And if we adhere to, development or growth should pay for the costs associated with that growth or development, which I think most of us do. And that's the theme or the theory of development charges. It's important that we have this in place, and there's a timing issue now. We've just heard earlier this afternoon that in the past, the obligation to pay occurred when you filed or got your building permit. And so now you do pay at that time, but the triggering of the obligation occurs when you file your application for rezoning or whatever it is. And so once the official plan's in place, I think we can expect we're going to see those applications. And I think it's critical that before that happens, we have in place a properly amended and reconsidered set of development charges. Some of it specific to the boundary lines. Otherwise, Councillor Martin's exactly correct. The balance of the residents will then be paying for some development that really should not be borne by them. So it's all about fairness in my mind. Okay, so any other speakers? Councillor Van Tilburg.
Yeah, this shouldn't be a surprise to us. So why are we in such delayed, I guess is a word, because we need to get this done quickly. Why are we so delayed in training a consultant to look at the DC chart, the DCs? This could have actually been put out there in an open process for bidding instead of single source.
If I can, I'll answer that question, Mr. Mayor. We engaged Hemson last year to do some work on the northern boundary lands and the costs for those, and about 5 different options we'll be bringing forth on in December about how we look at DCs in that area. During those discussions over the last month, basically to start charging these other ways, charging area-specific development charge fees or what have you, I realize a whole development charge would have to be looked at, the whole review would have to be looked at. So that's why we're here today, because we want to time it out at the same time as the boundary lands will come in with the official plan approved by the province. So that's why it was not planned for.
So for anyone watching, it's a natural flow of a process that we'd started last year.
Thank you very much. It's better what I'm trying to say. Thank you. That's exactly.
I wanted to make that clear, those who are watching.
Thank you.
That said, not seeing any other raised hands. Madam Clerk, let's call the vote.
It appears to me that Councillor Vanderstel is not present, but I'm just doing a call out just to ensure if his camera, I believe, has been turned off. So I'll mark him as absent for this vote. Item 4.1 as amended has carried on a recorded vote of 9-0. Those voting in favor, Councilors Weaver, Sless, McCreary, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Til, Burkwall, Mayor Davis.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. So we'll move then to item 4.2, which is the Home for Good Support Services staffing proposal. We have Mary Ellen McClellan and Aaron Walsh to answer any questions. Councilor McCreary, I understand you have the motion to place this item 4.2 on the floor. If you do, could you please read it and state your seconder if you've got one?
Mayor, yes, Councillor Martin is the seconder. Sorry, no, Councillor Weaver is the seconder. He's the Vice Chair of Social Services. My mistake. The recommendation reads as follows: that report 2020-530 Home for Good Support Services staffing proposal be received. B, that staff be directed to proceed with the staffing and support model described in the report. C, that staff be directed to proceed with hiring 4 new staff positions for the staffing and support model funded through the Provincial Home for Good program. D, the staff be directed to provide 24 hours of level 3 security at Marlene Avenue Apartments 7 days a week, and further investigate the potential integration of this service into a corporate security model. And E, that staff be directed to investigate additional partners to assist and support the Live Well Home for Good support model. And F, that staff be directed to conduct a review of city-operated staffing model after 1 year to evaluate program effectiveness. And G, that staff be directed to provide a report to Social Services Committee in December 2021 with results and recommendations for the ongoing operations of the Marlene Avenue site.
All right, Councillor Sless.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to get confirmation. The province is contributing, or I guess paying operating of 1 point something. I haven't got the exact number in my mind, but 1.1 or just over $1 million in operating costs. Is that ongoing funding, or is this something that's going to transition over to being a municipal responsibility?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is an ongoing funding. It's an annual allocation, and we expect to receive the operating funding on an annual basis to support the Home for Good program.
So that's in perpetuity then?
Yes, through the mayor, there are some clauses that should the situation change or we not offer, obviously the Home for Good process, that could change, but indeed it is annualized funding in perpetuity.
Thank you. And then just further to that, they are also carrying the cost of the debenture for Marlene Avenue. Is that an open-ended program? Can we reapply and build additional properties and units and have them as well carry the debenture on that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this was a one-time funding allocation through the Home for Good program, and we did apply for the grant, and 18 municipalities across Ontario were selected for the Home for Good. So it is a one-time program.
So you just spurred another question. So if we were to go out on our own and fund an additional build, could we assume we would get operating funding from the province, or could we assume we wouldn't?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, my assumption would be no, we would not have any additional supportive dollars. For example, the Rapid Housing Initiative that's just been recently announced does not come with supportive dollars. This Home for Good was a one-time with attached annual supports.
Okay, so we got our 35 units, and that's probably the end of that program.
Through the mayor, yes, we have 30 units and then additional units out in the community for our youth cohorts.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe this came about because of the problems that we've encountered with the contractor that was overseeing Marlene Ave and I guess to some extent Winston Court as well. And so the reaction to that is that we bring it in-house, and I don't agree with that reaction. I think the better course would have been to redesign the tender in such a way that there were proper oversights so that the situation that developed at Marlene Ave wouldn't happen again. But I think this is work that should be done by an outside agency. I'd prefer to see staff redo the tender in such a way that the proper oversight is built into the contract instead of what we had with Wesley for Marlene Ave. And for that reason, I'll be voting against what's on the floor here. And if this were to fail, I'd be happy to bring forward a resolution asking staff to redo the tender with the proper oversight built into it and see what kind of numbers we get from the private sector. If they come in higher than what staff is proposing the cost would be here, well, then at that time I could support our staff doing it. But until we have the competitive bid to compare to, I think this is going to end up costing us more in the long run. And you know, if we can get a contractor to do it for less, we might be able to utilize some of that provincial money somewhere else. I don't know what the conditions are that come with that money. Maybe we can't, but in any case, we think we need to get the best price we can for the taxpayer. And I believe this should be put out to a competitive tender with the proper supports in place. So I'll be voting against this.
Councillor McCreary.
Mayor, thank you very much. I want to thank staff for acting quickly on the concerns that we all expressed. Councillor Weaver and I, Vice Chair Weaver and I, and the Ward 5 councillors, Councillor Van Tilburg, Councillor Wall, had some interaction with municipal staff concerning the situations at Marlene Avenue. And in response to our concerns and the concerns of the neighbors, what you see in front of you is what you see in front of you today. So I think our staff have done a good job of picking up the pieces here. It kind of went south on us, but we're now poised to go forward and make the best we can out of this. Having said that, I haven't had the opportunity to ask questions of our staff, Mayor. So through you, there are a couple of things I'd like to know. First of all, I'm presuming that the four city employees are either folks working for us now or folks that we would be hiring on a 12-month contract basis. Is that the case?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. Should this be approved, we would be hiring them on a 12-month contract so that we could evaluate the program going forward and make those recommendations in 1 year's time.
Okay, so there's no necessity then for us to seek transfers from our current staff who might be interested?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the current reorg has created some vacancies or some individuals who may choose to apply to this program, but we will be posting it looking for a very specific skill set.
Okay.
I think it's important that we have the skill set that actually deals with this challenging population, including
Sure. Okay.
with many of their challenges, including teaching.
So you obviously have a job description already prepared, Mary Ellen?
Through the mayor, yes, we do. We have a draft job description created.
Super. Now, the contractor that we had in place, you can stop me if I'm wading into trouble here, but the contractor that we had in place, according to a memo which we received, which I don't think was in camera, but sometimes I can't remember what's what.
Well, I'll stop you there, Councilor McCreary. So it was confidential. If we're going to get into discussing that contract, I think we'd have to go in camera because we're really getting legal advice.
Yeah, I'm not going to drag out this already lengthy procedure today by asking for that. Perhaps we can have that discussion at a later date about remedies that might be available to the corporation because of the contractual failure of the contractor. Now, we're also employing security. So have we developed a very robust direction to give to this security company as to exactly what they are doing for us on the site, being proactive rather than simply watching things happen?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we are in the process of developing those procedures and policies. In the interim, we have management staff on site 5 days a week, 7 hours a day to provide that immediate direction to the security firm. We have raised our security level to level 3 guards, which is working more appropriately. And with working with Wesley, we will develop those ongoing procedures and guidelines.
So like DEFCON 3?
Sorry.
I shouldn't have said that. Now, our plan is to have a report back to us in December of 21. Now, if we're
Can you
engaging
wrap
our
it?
folks.
Can you wrap it? You got 10 seconds.
Oh, thanks, Mayor. Our plan is to have the report back December 21. If we're on a 12-month basis, should we not be having the report back sooner than that with a plan to transition January 1?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's certainly a possibility. We could do that. We just felt that we needed enough time to be able to evaluate the program, get the staffing in place, come up with the right set of skills and all our procedures and policies in place. We had hoped for, a smooth transition to that, to what we are proposing today. And then again, we would want a smooth transition to whatever is being recommended in a year's time.
Thank you.
Next, Councillor Wall.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Davis. Much of what I was going to say, I think, has been said in some way or another. The opening of Marlene Ave has had quite the impact on the neighborhood, and Councillor Van Tilburg and I have had a lot of conversations with residents, particularly in Eagle Place, about what they'd like to see done, differently, and ultimately how we may be able to win support of the people of Eagle Place for what's going on here. Because, I mean, there's a lot of different voices and a lot of different opinions. I want to sincerely thank staff and everyone who worked on this for doing their best, to work with what they have to address the concerns that many people in Eagle Place have raised specifically about this. And speaking directly to some of the comments that were made regarding our staff's involvement specifically with this in the very near future, I think one of the reasons that I had heard, or what I understood from it, was that we need right now, immediate control. We need to be ability to be able to pick up the phone and call somebody, and we can only do that directly with our staff. If any contract is going to be created, I definitely want to see direct oversight by the city for this facility. It's a city-owned facility, and as long as it says City of Brantford on the title and on the building, and people know that it's owned by the city, they're going to pick up the phone, they're going to call Councillor Van Tilburg and I, and they're going to expect immediate results. There's been too many incidents at that site, and it has been disruptive to the people who live nearby that site. And those people have a right to peace and comfort. If this was any other neighbor, we expect neighbors to get along and to be respectful of one another. We are dealing with an incredibly vulnerable population here, and those people have rights too. And I think that it's not necessarily the people who are living there, it's people who are visiting the people who are living there. And there needs to be some oversight and some responsibility for what's coming into the building, what's going on in the building, who's staying in the building. And that kind of oversight, I think, right now can only come from having direct involvement from our social services staff and having a sense of accountability to council and to social services staff, and mostly to the people who live in that neighborhood. And I think this report covers a lot. I think there's still a lot of work to be done. The most important part for me is that we are respectful to all parties involved. That includes the people who live there, the staff that work there, the security that are there, they're going to have their work cut out for them. And I hope that we are ensuring that the security that we are having on site have really great training and working with people who have addictions and mental illness. And I hope they have great conflict resolution training. I hope that they'll be respectful of the neighbors. I've already heard reports of the security card that's there is just parked and doesn't move. And people are like, oh, well, is there even anybody in the car? And there's a lot of eyes on what happens here. And I think every member of this council is well aware that we're going to need more projects like this. This has to be a success. It is not optional for this program to succeed. So we need to be ensuring that we are doing everything that we can to make sure that this succeeds and that we are helping the people who are housed there, but we are also living up to our end of the bargain to make sure that this isn't disruptive to the people who live nearby. So I hope that we can support this, and I do hope this can be a continuous conversation that keeps happening, and we continue to keep making it better to the best it can be. All right, that's it. Thanks.
Councillor Van Tilburg.
Yeah, I want to thank the Vice Chair and Chair of Social Services, Dan Perry and Councillor Weaver, and staff for coming together as quickly as possible. I understand Councillor Martin has concerns about the process we're endeavoring. We actually had to put a stop to the process that would seem most logical because of the problems that we had been encountering. And those are problems that Dan McCurry went through a long list. Councillor McCurry went through a long list of things that are happening. And there's probably another 180 things going on that we don't know are happening. And we can't write proposals and when we don't know what's going on. And getting feedback has been like pulling teeth, which hasn't been good. And so what is most needed is accountability and responsibility, both which seems to be severely lacking. And, you know, what the project's intent was and what the outcomes have been to this point, there's some successes out there. They are unfortunately will probably never be heard because of the levels of what I don't know another way to put it, but failure to execute a proper program. This is a very good response. Going through all the things that are forward there. I don't know if we can ever change what's happened into the community from the mindset. We certainly can do the best that we can in order to rectify the situation. And that means that staff will be there and they will be seeing firsthand the things that go on. They'll be able to, Councillor Wall and I have been hamstrung by our abilities to communicate. We literally have to go through 2 to 3 different parties to get an answer on a simple question, let alone getting an answer on a very difficult question. It is not the solution. To being able to contact our own staff and get quick, responsive answers, showing, and quite frankly, some of the stuff we see, we could probably be providing them with information that they would have been unaware of at the time. I have a question. There was a mention made about the security and what they're doing now. Could we explain what security level 3 is, please?
Through the mayor, level 3 security has all of the skills to be able to have great communications, crisis intervention, can use force if necessary, and has superior emergency response skills. They are currently actually working with us to curtail some of the access to the building. They're monitoring who comes and goes based on identification we provided to the tenants. So that is the level of the level 3 guard.
Okay, and when we have our own staff there, will they be documenting all the activities so that when the time comes in 1 year and we do have to put out a proposal, that they will have all the pertinent information to make a handoff or possibly consider keeping it in-house as options?
Through the mayor, with staff on site, we're proposing that there be a case management approach. Each client will have a case management plan, and all of those items that are contained within the plan will be recorded, and we'll be measuring successes with each client, and then ultimately identifying issues with the entire community at large. So there will be those measurements in place to make that evaluation going forward.
And there was a mention on traffic going in and out of the building that were not residents. How much of that can you comment on? And if you can, please put out as much information as possible in order to correct the record.
Yes. Through the mayor, we became aware in October that individuals were going to Marlene Ave to attain homelessness services. We were unaware of this information. We have since certainly discussed the issue with Wesley, and we did ask them to stop that process. I believe they were providing support to an additional 36 people from that site, and we have asked them to not provide homelessness services other than to the residents of Marlene Ave.
And that ask, was that?
Councillor, sorry, Councillor, you've gone beyond 4 minutes. Do you want me to put you down for a second time?
Please.
Okay. Councillor Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mary Ellen, when the security comes in place, there has been a lot of issues in that area with midnight crawlers, for example, people that are crawling around the neighborhood in the 2 and 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning, not just in there, but within 6 or 7 or 12 block radius of that facility. That's increased since the opening of this facility. Is the security going to traverse those areas so that residents, I know residents at the, for example, Baldwin and Erie Avenue area, they're up middle of the night because they're concerned about the number of times that their security lights are going off, and they're concerned about people in their neighborhoods.
Through the mayor, our current process with the security will only monitor the activities of Marlene Ave. The parking lot, the interior of the building will be available for staff when they run into issues that they can't resolve. Sometimes it could be physical in nature, but the security company will not patrol the neighboring community. That being said, we are working on a potential proposal with facilities for a mobile security type plan. And the specifics of that proposal, I believe, will be coming out in January.
So as a result, though, of like you say, the previous contractor feeding 36 individuals, you said homeless, they've attracted that as a site for the homeless to go to, and then they're traveling the neighborhood. So I would just say to certainly I want to thank the Social Services Committee and staff for coming to a quick solution here. But I just want to remind you of that. That's the kind of experience that Councillor Antosky and I are experiencing with the whole hotel occupations on Cobra Street East, and the neighborhoods have been dealing with this for some time.
Yeah, before we go to second speakers, I just wanted to say that actually, Councilor McCreary, I didn't make the meeting on the Friday that you referred to because I had the meeting with staff on the Wednesday, actually. And, you know, certainly this has been one of my top priorities since, you know, late in September, where we began to receive information primarily from our police services as to the nature of the problem. I want to thank police services especially because the information they passed on to us has helped us considerably address the security issues in and around this particular facility, in which in many ways relate to how it's been operated. So that's been a large part of what I've been doing with Aaron Wallace and Brian Hutchings, and much of our conversations have been about security. And I can tell you, yes, those conversations are extending into what that could be beyond simply making sure this facility is run in a very efficient and tight and high security manner, and more to come on that. But and I really want to thank staff. I think Councilor McCreary, you're right. It's critical that we have our staff in place now, or very shortly, to change the manner in which this facility is operated, to determine what is going to work best for both the residents and the neighborhood. And then once we've determined that over the course of a year, we can then look to contracting out. But a little unusual in terms of how this has come forward to us with staff rather than going another submission RFP. But I think the nature of the problem and the impact on this neighborhood required us to take prompt, effective action. And that's what we're doing. So very happy to support this. As I said, it's an ongoing issue and priority for myself and of course all members of council, and especially the ward councillors as well. So it's great that working together that we're addressing this issue, which clearly needed to be addressed. The neighborhood had a lot of legitimate, very serious concerns. We're not quite there yet, but I think we're well on the way to addressing many of those issues. So I have for a second speaking opportunity, I think I've got Councillor Van Tilburg and Councillor McCreary.
Yes, I just wanted to, you kind of led into that, Mayor Davis, the fact that the neighborhood, with what their observations were and what they experienced, you know, we don't want to diminish any of that. Those were all valid. A lot of people originally, you know, when a project like this goes into a neighborhood, one assumes a NIMBY mentality. And any investigation into this, certainly after the first 2 months, was very clear that what the community was experiencing was very real and very problematic. And there was no winners in this, and that was probably the biggest thing that struck me most, is that we were trying to help a group of people, and we're trying to not affect the community. And quite frankly, with all the negative attention and the problems that happened, we did not help the people that were inside that building, and we certainly didn't help the community. We did nothing that would win them over. So we got to start somewhere. I believe that this is a work in progress that staff can address quite quickly. Not quite quickly, but can respond to each action with quickness. Now, what I would like to know is, will staff be able to do things that are outside of landlord-tenant acts and things like that with the program that we got? In other words, will there be, and I'm not saying that this is a rule, but will there be possibilities for, if needed, as needed, rules for controls of guests and tenant behavior within the building or leaving the building, such things as no, you can't bring 3 shopping carts full of metals into the building or leaving them outside, things like that. What kind of controls will we be allowed? Are we allowed, or do we make the rules? I just want to have that out there.
Mayor, we are in the process of strengthening all of our guidelines and all of our rules for the tenants. They are subject under the Residential Tenancies Act, but that doesn't mean that we can't set our own limits. For example, we've set limits for that particular building for overnight guests of 2 days. And we will take action if someone has someone living with them that's where they haven't asked for permission or that exceed that 2-day limit. We have done that. We are monitoring the entrance to the building, and we are disabling the front entrance system so that the residents have to come down and greet their guests if they are to show up after 8 p.m. at night, and we'll ask them to sign an agreement. We don't know how well that agreement will go or if it could be challenged.
But this is a lot more than what we have been doing in the first months of this operation, correct? A lot more?
The Mayor, absolutely. We plan on having signage everywhere. We plan on controlling what's happening in the building and keeping the non-residents away. Certainly they're entitled to visit, but they're not allowed to stay there. We hope to provide fencing around the community, which will curtail entrance into those side doors. Plus, we have already installed the magnet locks so that no one can get in those side doors.
All right. And when they see activities of acquired goods that may be suspicious, will we be able to respond to that?
Through the Mayor, we haven't seen a lot of that yet. We've only simply started doing that. We'll work with those clients to curtail that, to stop that activity immediately.
Thank you.
I have for a second time Councillor McCreary, but I see Councillor Vanderstel. You've raised your hand. You haven't spoken yet, so you can go next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have to thank my neighbor for their Wi-Fi as well. Mine took a dive, so I'm on somebody else's Wi-Fi right now. Sorry for disappearing. I apologize for the if I overstate or restate something that somebody else has said in the conversation. Regardless, this was, in a nutshell, this was just necessary. It's unfortunate that we had to go through this experience 2 or 3 steps removed. But you walk into this situation and situations like this, exercising a certain amount of trust that the agency is doing everything it can to ensure the safety of not only the clients, but the staff there and the surrounding neighborhood as well. It's obvious that wasn't part of the communal experience. So this is another testament to Social Services Committee, my ward mate, Rick Weaver, Councillor McCreary, all working together and spinning on a dime on this one, grabbing the bull by the horns and actually holding it to the standards that it needs to be held to. And I say it happened in good time and good fashion. It's obvious we've taken very clear and decisive action and will continue to improve our service model within the city of Brantford. And I can only hope that we can continue along the same models with the varying needs on the entire continuum of service that we will be providing for people who are suffering from varying degrees of homelessness and everything else that they're struggling with. So I applaud all the efforts. I'm thankful for them. And I guess I'll be watching in the future to ensure that there is 100% clear communication between our staff, our council, and the services we provide, that there's no breakdown in communication, and that the services are held to a certain standard that keeps our people safe, that keeps our clients safe, and that keeps our neighborhood safe. If we can't focus on that, we've certainly lost the ball. I'm glad we've got the ball in hand now. Thank you.
Councillor McCurry, I have you for a second time.
Mayor, thank you. I have a number of minor amendments I'd like to introduce at this point in time. The first amendment would be regarding clause G, which specifies that we get a report in December 2021 with results and recommendations for ongoing operations. Mayor, I'm going to move that we revise that date to September the 30th. I would think that with the fullness of time elapsed between now and September the 30th, our staff will have a perfect view on what needs to be done on this site on an ongoing basis. And I think if we get the report back then, that gives us an opportunity to be able to plan for January the 1st, whether it's to contract out or to maintain municipal operation, which will give us plenty of time to be able to negotiate or terminate staff and to conclude a contract and put it on the street for a tender that could take effect January 1. And I'm seeking a seconder for that to change that date to September 30. I see Councillor Weaver.
Councillor Weaver.
Yeah. So I think it makes sense for us to be planning for that date. And I don't believe we can do that if it comes back to us in December.
All right, so Madam Clerk, do you have that? Yeah, G. Just getting the wording up here on the screen. All right, so Councillor, to that amendment, Councillor Martin.
Thank you. Since the amendment was moved by the mover and seconded by the seconder of the original resolution, sounds like the perfect friendly amendment to me.
Yeah, I was prepared to rule that way, and I'm prepared because we've got a long evening ahead of us. So unless anybody has any objection, I'm prepared to treat that as a friendly amendment. If you've got an objection to that, physically raise your hand. Seeing no raised hands, it's your first friendly. Did you have some more friendly amendments you want to make?
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that actually. The second one will be a slight change to clause C, which speaks to hiring 4 new staff positions. And I know it was mentioned verbally that they would be on a 1-year contract position. I would simply like to reinforce that by including that within the body of the clause that would state 4 new staff positions on a 1-year contract basis.
So on a 1-year contract basis would be between the words position and 4.
Yes, that's correct. And I see the seconder to the original resolution is going to second this.
Okay.
So I guess that is friendly as well, with your leave, Mayor.
Can I just make a minor amendment to that?
Okay, well, hang on. So unless anyone has any objections, I'll treat it as a friendly amendment. If you want to discuss and debate it, then raise your hand and we'll treat it as just a formal amendment. So I'm not seeing any raised hands on that one. So
Shall I continue?
Yes.
That's actually, Mr. Mayor, could I just add that up to 12 months for those staff members, just in case we don't need them for the entire 12 months. I wouldn't want to have ourselves locked into a contract that
Great.
might not be as long as needed. Thank you.
That would be staff positions, comma, for up to 12 months, comma, for the staffing and support model. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. Next, Mayor, Clause F. Currently reads, the staff be directed to conduct a review of staffing model after 1 year to evaluate program effectiveness. I would think that we would have that available to us at September 30th as well, as opposed to 1 year.
So you're suggesting that would be conduct a review of city operated staffing model on or before that date in September
On or before, yes.
to evaluate program effectiveness. The same date as in G.
Correct.
Is that okay with you, Councilor Weaver? Anybody object to friendly amendment on that one? No objections? Madam Clerk, do you have that? Just want to make sure. Yep, she does. Okay, next.
Okay, the next would be the addition of a clause H, that staff provide a quarterly report to Social Services Committee.
So H would be that staff provide a quarterly report to Social Service Committee in respect to the ongoing operations of the Marlene Avenue site. Is that the intent?
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Can I comment on that?
I see Councilor Weaver. I think you nodded your head as that's a friendly. Anyone wanted to debate or discuss that? Okay, we're going to treat that as a formal amendment. Councilor Wall, you're up first.
I can only comment it if it's. I can't. It has to be.
Well, I took your raised hand to say you want this to be a formal amendment, not friendly. So
I just wanted to comment on it. I don't want to make it formal. Just a
well,
word
actually,
change.
well, I'd say this. I mean, once it's been amended with the friendly, I'm going to rule that everybody gets another speaking opportunity at least if they want it. So you're not. That's a friendly one, Madam Clerk. Anything else, Councilor McCreary?
Yes, the addition of a clause I. The staff prepare a report on legal options available to the corporation, and that be provided at a future in-camera meeting of City Council.
So that's a legal report in respect to the current contract. Is that what you're talking about?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, just waiting for Tanya to tell me that she's. Right. Okay. All right. Yep, I think we got that one. Councilor Weaver, you okay with that? And we're going to see it all at the cumulative amended version. Nobody's raising their hand. One that formal. Anything else?
Mayor, I regret to say that's all the amendments I have for you.
All right. So, Madam Clerk, I know you've been busy typing away here. Can you throw up for us on the shared screen? Really superlative support effort by Tanya. Reminds me of another night where there was 30 amendments. Okay. So as I said, as the chair, I'm going to say, because there have been a lot of amendments there, one more speaking opportunity. And so Councillor Martin.
Thank you. I think all the amendments help improve this. However, I still think that our current staff don't have the skill set to do this kind of security work. And I'm not sure that hiring new people for the city is the right way to go. I'd like to see this put out for tender, but I expect I'll be defeated on that idea.
I'm just waiting for the clerk to bring up for us this on the shared screen, the amended version. Meanwhile, Councillor Wall, if you want to speak to it.
Yeah, this is great. I'm really happy. I'm really thankful for all the amendments. I'm really thankful for all the comments of everybody here at the table. My only comment would be maybe just a question, if I may. I'd really like to see a community engagement piece as a part of this. Councillor Van Tilborg and I are kind of taking a lot of the commentary through social media and through online, and we had a press release that was released, and that was great. But is it possible, or maybe what kind of options could be investigated regarding having somebody who would be the liaison to the public regarding this, like a direct contact number that perhaps Councillor Van Tilborg and I could use, when someone says, I'm having an issue with this particular site, for them to call? Or I just feel like we have to work on neighbor relations, and I would really like to perhaps see that be a part of this.
Mary Ellen, can you help us on that?
Sure.
I'll treat that as a good
Through the
question.
mayor, we have certainly have many items in the draft job description that will speak to tenant engagement. So we want to, one, establish opportunities for the tenants to re-engage into the larger community through external programs and activities. We'll work with the tenants to do a tenant council and create building initiatives to support that healthy community. We'll assist tenants to obtain funding to enhance their community activities and help the tenants become good neighbors. So that's a piece of it. We'll liaison with community agencies to be able to provide those intensive supports where we might not have the skills, but where they require very specific mental health or nurse practitioner services. We'll certainly build in other processes as we can through external activities with the community at large once we're through the COVID stage.
So what about specific to neighboring residents, like a contact directly for, so if somebody who lives on Eagle Ave wanted,
through the mayor, we can provide a specific email address or a contact for anyone who may have some concerns regarding the residents. I can't say that we would be able to address every situation, but we would certainly work with those clients who have been deemed to be causing neighborhood issues. Not all issues in the ward, we believe, are caused by Marlene Ave. So we would have to we'd have to be able to identify those individuals, and we would work very closely with them. Our goal here is to keep them stably housed and to ensure they don't return to homelessness, but to be good neighbors. That's extremely important.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we now have the full resolution in front of us. Everything underlined are the friendly amendments that we just made over the last 20, 30 minutes. So I'll give everybody just a minute to look at it. So, other speakers, Councillor McCreary for your third and final time.
Mayor, thank you very much. I guess in terms of my comments, in terms of wrapping up, we entered into this with the best of intentions. We inadvertently got ourselves into a jackpot at this site, causing problems in the neighborhood and not really delivering even the programs to the clients that we intended. I know there's been a lot of finger pointing in the community, but when all's said and done, the buck stops with the 11 of us here. And I want to thank the ward councillors and my vice chair for putting this back on track, and to staff for diligently and quickly dealing with the issues that were brought up. We're in a position now to go forward and do better for the community and do better for the folks that live there. And I think it's important for us to recognize, in the context of the resolution before us and the amendments that we've made, that we plan to transition out of a city staff operated facility by January the 1st of next year, sorry, 2022, barring the unforeseen circumstance that, above and beyond all expectations, we should continue this as a municipal operation. I doubt that's going to happen though. So again, thanks to everybody that's involved in this. For those of you concerned in the community, please continue to keep your ward councillors informed of issues that arise, and be assured that we're doing the very best that we could do now to make sure that the two communities blend well together, and that we try to get beyond the difficulties and problems that we've had so far in operating the Marlene Ave site.
All right, so not seeing any other speakers, I'll call the vote, Madam Clerk, now that we've got this amended version up.
Item 4.2, the Home for Good Support Services staffing proposal, noting the friendly amendments that were added during the debate process, has carried on a recorded vote of 9-1. Those voting in favor, Councillors Weaver, Vanderstel, Sless, McCreary, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis. Those opposed, Councillor Martin.
All right, so we'll now move to resolutions. We have one resolution which requires a motion to waive the rules. Just a reminder that 2/3 majority vote is required for a motion to waive the rules. Councillor Toski, would you please read your motion to waive the rules?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Carpenter. Motion to waive the rules that sections 15.3.11 and 15.11.5 of Chapter 15 of the City of Brantford Municipal Code be waived in order to permit the consideration of the following resolution without prior notice of motion and without first having been considered by a standing committee or committee of the whole. Whereas Bill 218, supporting Ontario's Recovery and Municipal Elections Act 2020, removes the option for municipalities to choose the ranked ballot system for an election. And whereas in 2016, the Ontario provincial government gave municipalities the tools to use ranked balloting in municipal elections commencing in 2018, which was deployed in the City of London, thereby becoming the first municipality in Canada to make the switch, while Cambridge and Kingston both passed referendums in favor of reform, and Burlington, Barrie, Guelph, Meaford, and others are now exploring a change as well. And whereas the change of election method process does not impact the provincial election models, but greatly impacts the municipality's execution options. And whereas the only explanation given for this is that we should not be experimenting with the electoral process during a pandemic, mindful that ranked ballot voting is not an experiment, but widely used throughout the world and should be a local option that municipalities can look to utilize in the next election, which is just under 2 years away. And whereas Bill 218 also moves up the municipal nomination date from the end of July to mid-September for no apparent reason, thereby reinforcing the power of incumbency and potentially discouraging broader participation in municipal elections. And whereas these changes are being proposed without any consultation with AMO and municipalities or the public, now therefore be it resolved that the city clerk be directed to submit the following comments on behalf of the City of Brantford to the Province of Ontario with respect to the proposed changes to the Municipal Elections Act 1996. 1, the city does not support the proposed changes to the Municipal Elections Act 1996, specifically related to the removal of the option for a municipality to hold a ranked ballot election. 2, the city does not support the principle, 2, the city does support the principle that each municipality should be able to choose whether or not to use first past the post or a ranked ballot election. And 3, the city encourages the provincial government to meaningfully consult with municipalities on municipal issues before introducing legislative changes of this magnitude. And B, that the city clerk be directed to forward a copy of this resolution to MPP Will Boma, Premier Doug Ford, and listing of other municipalities.
Right, so any discussion, of course, at this stage, it simply is to the urgency, not to the merits. Seeing no raised hands, Madam Clerk, let's call the vote on the motion to waive again, which does require 2/3 majority.
So the motion to waive the rules has carried on a recorded vote of 8 to 2. Those voting in favor, Councilors Weaver, Vanderstelt, Sless, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Tilbrook, Wall, Mayor Davis. Those opposed, Councilors McCurry, Martin.
All right, so we have it on the floor. That's 2/3. So there's 4 minutes speaking up. So we'll start with Councillor Martin and Councillor Wall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't be supporting this. When this was discussed before the last election, it was suggested that we try it. When I looked at the model that was being proposed, it doesn't work if you have 2 councillors per ward. The problem is that it looks like you're giving people additional votes. What you're really doing is taking away their second vote if their first choice is successful. So if someone selects the 2 people that they want to represent them at council, their second choice might not make it because their second vote never counted because the first choice was successful. So I can't support anything that would take away a vote from my constituents. And I hope that other people realize that this doesn't work with 2 councillor system. And I just think it's going down a road that could lead to very serious problems for our community.
Yeah, just before we go to the second speaker, which is Councillor Wall. So I assume Councillor Antosky, you're the mover of this motion. You were the mover of the motion to waive, and is it Councillor Carpenter as well as the mover of this motion? Seconder, I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, Councillor Carpenter is nodding his head. All right, so Councillor Wall, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor Davis. Through you, knowing that I can't ask Councillor Antosky a question, I'm going to ask staff a question. Where did the wording for this motion come from? Is this something that is going through the circuit, or is this specifically designed for this council, for this meeting?
Can you answer the question?
Certainly. So through the chair, Councillor Antosky did provide some sample wording from other municipalities that we used to produce the resolution that she supported and has put before you today.
Great. Next question. Is this a decision that this municipality is able to make, or is this, I'm just trying to understand it. We're simply stating that we would like them to consider our opinion in the matter, and that ultimately the decision is up to the province to make?
So through the chair, that's right. So it's up to the province in order to pass the legislation or the change in legislation. But Councillor Antosky's resolution is providing for a support in not having the change in the legislation pass through by way of comments from the City of Brantford's perspective. Not that City of Brantford is joining in the ranked balloting process, but believing that it should be an option available to municipalities.
Okay, thank you. So now my commentary, I guess. So if we were to look at A, my commentary would be that AI, the city does not support the proposed change, I would rather see that not in there, simply because it's the council, not the city, because we haven't asked the people of the city what they think. This is the council making this decision. And then the second would be 3 is the one that I think is the most important. I think it's really important for this city to make a bold statement like, hey, Mr. Province or Mrs. Province or Province, if you're going to make decisions that affect us, you should at least talk to us or ask us. So I think A3 is really important. And then A2, maybe this is a friendly amendment, but there are so many more options beyond first past the post or ranked ballot. I would rather see it that the city supports the principle that each municipality should be able to choose whether or not it uses whatever type of system it wants to. Like, I don't know why it has to be A or B when it could be A, B, C, D, E. Like, it really should be up to the people of the city to decide what they want and how the people of the city want to pick their people. So I'm not saying anything now. I've got a second speaking opportunity if it was needed. But if this were my motion, what I would be doing was be taking out I, because I don't know if this will pass with I in, because it's not, whatever. And then the second, I would maybe change it so that it wasn't one or other. It was simply that the city supports the principle that each municipality should be able to choose whether or not to use its own desirable election process. Gosh, this is complicated, but those are my thoughts.
All right. Next, Councillor Antosky.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, my dog has just decided to bark. Let me just shut the door. This is certainly, it refers to ranked ballot because this is this specific proposal that is coming to the legislature for the third reading on November 16th, which was the rush for this. And it's to remove an option. So certainly to Councillor Wall's point, you know, if we wanted to say, you know, local governments be able to choose which election process they want to use, including ranked ballots, I think that we have to address that because this is specifically what we're addressing in the changes. And also in I, if we say the corporation of the city or the council, that's fine, but I don't think that we can remove I entirely because again, it's the point of the resolution. We are reaching out to the province to say, you know, we don't support you taking away an option because we haven't had a chance to debate it. We haven't talked to our residents, and that should be a decision that's locally decided when that issue comes up. We may, whether or not we support ranked ballots is not the issue at this point, but to make a decision on that now for ourselves and for future councils, I think is taking away options to consult properly and to deal with different issues. I know that the clerk's department is coming back with a report to us I think it's the first quarter of 2021 that will deal with multiple issues around our elections, which may change some of our views on whether or not to look at ranked ballots. Maybe it doesn't, but before we take away that option, you know, just taking away the option thwarts the ability to properly debate and discuss and educate ourselves on the option. I know that Councillor Martin has seen a model that says it doesn't benefit the second, and I haven't seen that model, so maybe that model's out there, but if you search it, there are multiple options that use examples of, you know, they'll use playground equipment. You have 6 options and you can only pick 4, and it shows how those votes get distributed and go down the line. So it can work for more than one awarded spot, whatever that issue may be, whether it's a council position or picking for something else. So I know we have two speaking opportunities, so I'd like to hear from others, but I do, for me, this is strictly about removing an option before we've had the opportunity to properly discuss it specifically in regard to our election process. I know that we had discussed it before. We decided to not take further discussion on it because we were really looking at our online process that we had trialed, and we wanted to expand that, and we wanted to make that better and make sure it went right through to election time, and that we would discuss ranked ballots at another time. So, and we can choose at that time whether we want to do it, whether we don't want to do it. A future council can do the same, but we can't if we allow somebody else to take that option away from us. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Van Tilburg.
I agree with Councillor Martin in that ranked ballots won't work for a 2-candidate system. I think that's fairly obvious, but that's not the question at large here. So it's really not a debate about ranked ballots in particular. It's a debate about choice. And I believe London is a municipality that took it upon themselves to go to the ranked ballot system. And it's significantly different. Where in Toronto, you're having people elected on 18 to 22% of the vote, which is not a very high benchmark, running against, I don't know, 16, 15 candidates. I mean, things get watered down pretty good. So I can understand each municipality has a different problem to address in order to respond to constituents in a more fair-minded manner. So that option of ranked ballots was put on the table. We did not take it up. I don't think we will take it up as long as we're in a 2 ward per person system. However, we may not always be in a 2 person ward system. We may be changing the next term or two to a single person per ward. And maybe the ranked ballot would be applicable, but by removing that option now, it's more about supporting, I guess, other municipalities that want that choice, that wish to deal with their issues. And I would say that if we were in the same boat, if we weren't possibly 2 candidates per or 2 elected officials per ward, we would probably be shouting a little louder that, hey, we would like our ranked ballots, especially if we'd already elected people on that system. So I'm not, it's not whether I'm in favor or against. I don't think that they work here, but at this time, but I don't like the idea of the choice being removed. So it's more about supporting others, supporting a choice, supporting other municipalities. And I think possibly that this is a greater way to support constituents in those municipalities, because I believe in certain aspects, this is a more popular option for municipal politics. So I'll leave it at that.
Councillor McCreary.
Mayor, thank you very much. I didn't support the 2/3 vote to put this on the floor because I don't see the urgency in this. This has been before the government of the province of Ontario for months and months and months and months and months. And the fact that it's come to our attention now, I don't think merits the time that's gone in the rearview mirror with respect to an emergency. I can think of somebody that once said, you know, you can be all correct, and if part of that's wrong, then the whole thing is wrong. And when I look at the 1, 2, 3, 4th clause, which says, whereas the only explanation given for this is that we should not be experimenting with the electoral process, that's just not true. I don't know if anyone else consulted with the MPP's office, but when I asked about this, I was given a document which says that this was in response to a request from Ontario's chief electoral officer. And so what it says is the government of the province of Ontario believes that it's important that the way that people vote in provincial and federal elections is the same way they vote in municipal elections. They're committed to enhancing consistency in the elections process. They made changes to create a single voters list for both municipal and provincial. As noted by the chief electoral officer, the change was intended to reduce the need to make corrections on election day, shorten wait times to save municipalities money. So the government's brought forward additional changes to maintain predictability and consistency for municipal elections while better respecting taxpayers' dollars. It says that it's going to bring predictability to municipal elections when Ontarians are focused on their health and safety. It's going to make the process consistent upon all 3 levels of government. In short, what it's going to do is make sure that the same kind of mess doesn't happen that happened in the United States a week ago, where you've got 50 different systems producing 50 weird outcomes. And I think one of the elections, the voting doesn't close until tomorrow, for goodness sakes, right? So I think to say that if you want to support this for a variety of reasons, I think if you want, if you want this ranked system, just say so. But I don't believe that this is supportable tonight, and I sure won't be supporting it. It's a choice that we chose not to make last time when we could have. The province of Ontario, all the provinces, all the states are in the business of making unilateral decisions that affect municipalities and taxpayers and residents. That's what they do for a living. They make decisions. This is a decision that they've chosen to say. And Councillor Van Tilburg, Councillor Martin have both said that this isn't going to have any kind of an impact on us here in Brantford so long as we have 2 per ward, and maybe someday that change will come. But I think it's a bit disingenuous, in fact, to say that what the system that we use now is not fair and does not produce a democratic outcome. Maybe it doesn't recognize some other outcomes, but I think the 11 of us sitting around this table certainly would be remiss in not saying that we're doing the job that we were elected to do by the people that elected us.
Councillor Vanderstel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I apologize if I put anyone on the spot right now, but does Lumco, AMO, and FCM have an official position on this action?
Since I'm a member of both, so they meet basically every 60 days. So they've not met since this was announced. And in fact, there is a meeting of both next Friday. And I'm going to try and flip back and forth between both of them. I haven't seen yet the agenda for the AMO board meeting. I know that there is a caucus, because AMO has various caucuses, and I know that one of the caucuses is probably going to advance that as an agenda item next Friday. And in terms of the Ontario Big City Mayor's caucus meeting, I've not seen the agenda for it yet. So I'd like to give you the answer, but it's the timing, I can't tell you. So.
Right. And again, I apologize for putting you on the spot. How about FCM? Where do they stand on this?
Do you want me to answer? Can I answer that, Mayor? Sorry.
Yeah, well, you are FCM rep. I answered it in behalf of AMO and City Mayor.
There has not been an official response from FCM because this would be more of an AMO. This is a provincial matter. There has not been an official response from FCM. They would look at that as outside of their scope.
Okay. I apologize again, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your indulgence. Okay, so if we do not have an official position from any of the three bodies, two representatives on council, and it's been going on, as I understand, for months and months and months and months and months, and maybe a month in there as well. It stands to reason that there is an official position. Probably, Ed Holder would certainly, Mayor Ed Holder from London would take it personally if we didn't back him up. So from my perspective, I would like to have a little bit more information. I don't know how long this decision-making process is going to take and whether or not we will have the correct information in front of us before we make that decision. But I certainly would like to hear from all of the other municipalities to which this applies before I make up my mind one way or the other. I respect and understand the arguments put forward so far, but it doesn't hold water until you know the facts, and that's what I'm looking for. So that's what I'll wait for, and I'll be interested to see what happens.
Councillor Sluss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm a little unclear. What happens on November 16th? The province approves this in its final reading? Is that what I understood?
Yes.
I'm seeing heads going up and down. So they have to, anything we do will be impacting a final decision that's being made next Monday? Okay.
It appears that way. So I think the province has said they're soliciting input prior to third reading, which they always do with every legislation before third reading.
Okay, I guess to change the province's opinion on something in 6 days, you're better off buying a lottery ticket, I would think. There must have been, were there hearings, again, I'm not familiar with what the province did, so I guess I'm playing at a disadvantage. But I've heard it's been out for months and months and months, and I've heard, well, no, we just found out. Like, I'm not sure, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of in the same boat as Councillor Vanderstel. I really don't know much about this other than what I've heard today. So I guess I don't know where to go with this because I don't know where it's gone. I don't know how long we've had to entertain this. It appears that if we're going to do something, I guess it would have to be done now. And then I would question the impact of doing something a week before a final reading really has an impact on the final reading. So I'll listen to others and hear what they have to say, but it's kind of a confusing thing. I guess the timing, I guess, is kind of bothering me. It sounds like it's been out there a long time. Whether it has or not, I don't know. But if it has, we're hearing about it 6 days prior to a finalization, which is kind of awkward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I wish I could answer you, and I know the province announced it at some point. I'll frankly admit I didn't pay much attention to it. I got a lot of other priorities on my plate, and this wasn't in the top 10. So, given the decision the previous council made. So, Councillor Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just for informational purposes, I guess. So last term in 2016, the Liberal government of the time made this change and gave us the opportunities to switch which way we were doing our elections. And we received a staff report from the clerk's department, and we had an opportunity to try to make a more robust online voting system. That's what I supported, and I think the majority of council supported that, which is why we had a pretty good system in place for online voting. And in that staff report, if you remember, it did talk about we have the capacity to do one or the other, change our voting system or do online voting. And it was decided to do the online voting in hopes that that would improve our frankly dismal showing during the election. It really didn't do that much, but I'm hoping that we can build into that for this year. Obviously with COVID, I think there might be opportunities where people just want to start voting online again. But that's why council today made that decision. And just to remind everybody, we do have a resolution on the docket to look at our ward system and our wards and how many councillors are in each ward. So I would hate to not try to support this and then hamstring us in the event that we decide as a council to change our processes as far as the ward system. Then maybe it will be one councillor per ward, but yet now we don't have the opportunity to use this new system. And really what it does come down to for me personally is just the removal of our decision-making capabilities in the municipality. So I know that there's 444 other municipalities that are also looking at this. I think there's a lot of activity coming down the pipe this week and last week to try to get some information to the provincial government to show where people are lying as far as this decision. So I will be supporting this. I hope the majority of council supports this. And again, we're not saying we're going to change the way we vote. We're just simply asking to have that opportunity for us as the decision makers in the city to make a decision for our city.
Councillor Antosky.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'd like to provide a little bit of clarification to a few things that have been said. So, that it's been out there forever for months and months and months. The tools that were provided to us by the province to use this as an option has been there since 2016. I can't tell you exactly when this came to the floor of the province, but I like many people, were absorbed in a lot of things like COVID and things that we're dealing with in our community. And the reason for the urgency of this is because the final reading is on the 16th. However, we're not the only municipality to be playing a part in this. Certainly London has a resolution opposing this, part of this. So this resolution is a mismatch of London's resolution, Mono's, and a couple of additions that we put in ourselves. So I want to clarify that. And as Councillor Weaver said, our system may look different, so we'll want to have as many opportunities, not less opportunities. It doesn't make sense to limit our opportunities. We can vote with more information given the specific situation when we get there. So yes, I understand people's concern about the timing. I was speaking with one of my colleagues from FCM who is in London, and I reached out to him and said, hey, how's this been working for you guys? Did you guys do a resolution? And that's how I got theirs, was to get part of that. But Barrie has also submitted, Cambridge has submitted. So we're not the only ones coming in at the last minute. So I hope that this will be supported. I understand the concern of the timelines. As soon as I got notice of what the final reading was, that's when I moved, and I want to thank staff very much who helped craft this over the weekend. So thank you to the clerk's office. I appreciate that. And again, things may look different from today. And if we're still in a 2 counselor per ward system and we decide that it's just too complicated and it doesn't work properly, then we decide not to go with that, with ranked ballot. That's fine. But if we decide we're going to go, and I'm making stuff up, but 10 wards and 1 counselor per ward, or we go with a citywide system, maybe we want to look at different options. And as Councillor Wall said, maybe it's not just these 2 options, right? Maybe there's something else, but let's not put barriers in front of our options. This is not, we had a similar discussion earlier tonight about something, saying, look, this is not hand tying us to anything. This is bringing us more information. We can make a decision at the appropriate time. So my question would be is, why does that statement fit with one option and with one item and not another? So thank you. I hope for support on this, and I'll leave it at that, Mayor.
Councillor Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, I'm looking at the CBS News report out of London, and it says Ontario moves to axe ranked ballots from municipal elections. And then it says the PC government introduced the bill Tuesday. This is, by the way, October 20th, tagged onto COVID-19 recovery legislation. So we heard that this has been in the works for months and months and months, and maybe the insiders know that, but the newspaper and us general population weren't aware of that. And this is introduced, tagged onto COVID recovery legislation. At least that's what is reported in the London Free Press. So I guess the question here is, as a municipality, and our job here is to not be cheerleaders for any provincial government and of whatever political stripe, or for any federal government of political stripe. Our job here as councillors is to represent the taxpayers and the constituents of the municipality of the city of the Corporation of Brantford. That's our job. So what Councillor Natosky is doing by bringing this forward is saying your provincial government is about to take away one of your rights. And one of your rights is to choose ranked ballots, but they're about to take that right away. And that is their right. We are creatures of the province. They can do with us as they please. I think the public needs to understand that. I'd ask the public to research on their own. Go Google ranked balloting, research the process. I would say there's probably a lot of politicians that would be afraid of ranked ballots. The idea of ranked ballots was to get more people to come out to the polls so that their vote counted. We hear this often in election time. The same old is going to get elected. The first past vote, they're all going to get elected, including myself. They're best known, they're well known, they're going to get elected. So the people don't get to choose for their favorite candidate because they say my vote's not going to count anyways. That person doesn't stand a chance. The ranked balloting changes that option. So the person that actually gets the most votes out of the first, second, third choices actually wins. It's a process. It's an option. But the point here in Councillor Natosky's resolution is very clear. She's saying that the province is taking away our right, and we're offended by that. So I guess we've been given a couple of weeks notice on this. There are other issues that will be coming forward shortly that the province is changing regulations that affect our community. Anytime the province does anything that affects us, if it's good, we congratulate them. If we don't like it, we tell them so. That's what our job is, to do that. So I'm going to support Councillor Natosky's resolution, and I congratulate her for bringing it forward. I have concerns anytime our rights are usurped by the province by taking away any of our options as a community and as constituents. And my job is not to become a cheerleader for the provincial government of any political stripe. My job is to be the cheerleader for my constituents, and by voting in favor of this resolution, I'm doing just that. Thank you.
Okay, so I've got Councillor McCreary.
I would have thought that the mayor would have cautioned the previous speaker about accusing folks of being cheerleaders, but I guess I stood alone with that thought. I'm going to move an amendment, Mayor, and that's to the clause that I spoke of, 1, 2, 3, the fourth clause, which states the only explanation given for this is that we should not be experimenting. And I put it down to the fact that the mover and seconder were not fully informed about the activities of the provincial government. In fact, I did read the document that indicated what their reasoning was. And I would hope that some folks would have done the investigation like I did independently and arrived at why the province is doing this. So I'd like to move that that clause be struck because it's untrue and it's inaccurate. Seeking a seconder for that. I see I have Councillor Martin as a seconder.
Okay, so you have an amendment to strike the fourth whereas? Yeah, fourth whereas.
That is correct. Whereas the only explanation given is how it begins.
Yeah, okay, so that's moved by yourself, second by Councillor Martin. Anybody want to speak to that amendment? Councillor Vanderstel, have you raised your hand on this or the main motion?
I had my hand raised for the main motion, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Antosky on this amendment.
Thank you, Mayor. I won't oppose striking that. I did want to state, though, that I also reached out to our MPP and was not given the same document that Councillor McCurry received. I did receive a statement that, you know, they were looking at it as, you know, to simplify things and to have consistency among different levels of government, which I responded to the fact that municipalities run their own elections. So I didn't really understand how that either simplified or complicated things for our provincial government. So yes, I did reach out to our MPP's office. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else to speak to the amendment? Not seeing anybody. So Madam Clerk, on the amendment, call the roll.
Sorry, my system kicked me out. I'm logging back in. Just count me in the affirmative.
Thank you, Councillor Wall. The amendment to remove the whereas clause has lost on a recorded vote of 4-6. Those voting in favor, Mayor Davis, Councillors McCurry, Martin, Councillor Wall. Those opposed, Councillors Weaver, Vanderstel, Sless, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Tilburg.
Okay, so it's not amended. So. Councillor Vanderstel, you wanted to speak to the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If it doesn't detract too much from the main focus of this resolution, I would like to propose an amendment that the letter include a wish that the province would delay this decision-making process until such time that the three organizations I alluded to earlier had the chance to meet, discuss, and bring a full representation of 140 some odd municipalities and their concerns forward in a proper and due process. It's unfortunate that we found ourselves in this pandemic situation, but I don't need to remind you, Mr. Mayor, we received an email from you this morning from the Emergency Operations, and the update suggests to me that we are still in a state of emergency. We're still suffering from a worsening pandemic. I'm not sure if this is the right time to bring this legislation forward. I'm not sure if we have enough information to say yay or nay, and I am proposing that amendment, hoping that I can find some favor with the firster and seconder.
Okay, so are you moving an amendment then? Or are you requesting?
Yes, I am. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, for not being clear. I am moving an amendment to this. I hope it doesn't detract away from the main focus of the resolution, but I would like to ask for as well a delay in this decision-making process on behalf of the province to ensure that AMO, WUMCO, and FCM have enough time to compare notes, discuss, debate, and make their recommendations as well.
Okay, so I'm sorry, where are you suggesting that be? Where that be should be put in? Or is that a C? Is it?
If it is considered to be concurrent with the idea of this resolution, I leave that to the mover and seconder.
Okay, so you're not putting on the floor for an amendment, which you're making a suggestion as part of your speaking opportunity.
Oh, no, I'm definitely suggesting an amendment, but as to where it's placed, Mr. Mayor, that's up to the mover and seconder.
Okay, so do we have a seconder for that? We'll just throw it in as B.
Yes. I'll second.
Okay, so it's moved by Councillor McCreary.
I'm happy to make it friendly as a seconder.
That's what I was about to say as well.
Yeah. Madam Clerk has been busy typing away, and let's have a look at it. So be amended, okay. To include request. So that would be then that the letter that's going to MPP Wawona, Premier Doug Ford, and other municipalities would include a request to delay the decision. Got it.
Correct, and thank you.
All right. So that's been accepted by the mover, Councillor Antosky, and supported by the seconder. So I will, as I said previously, I tell people a mayor should only have 5 priorities at any one time, because, and I got to say the last 3-4 weeks, it's been like almost overwhelming. I'll admit that. And, especially as I've been speaking on the last several weeks about the resurgence of the virus, and that naturally has become a very top of mind concern for me. In terms of this particular resolution, I think I'm going to vote in favor, and I'll say for 2 reasons. One, I suspect that the Ontario Big City Mayor is probably AMO that will come up through at least several of the caucuses, and I think it's fair that municipalities be given an opportunity to consider this and debate it. And yeah, I'm in favor of municipalities being consulted when they're making changes like this. So I think probably, if I agree with the other councillors, that I can see how this would not work in a 2-ward system. So I don't think it would really change much locally unless we go to a 1-ward system. Anyways, so anybody else want to speak to it? A few haven't spoken to it for a second time. Okay, I'll vote. Oh yeah, so Madam Clerk's asked you, it was suggested early on, is there going to be a friendly amendment that where it reads the city to read the council? Would you consider that? I guess that'd be A1, 2, and 3. Councillor Toski, would you? So you have to unmute yourself. Sorry.
Sorry, it's not working. There we go. If it helps others support this, to change that to the corporation of the city of Brantford or city council rather than the city, which Councillor Wall is concerned it might, infer that we've already consulted with our residents, which we have not yet because we haven't had the chance to. Then I'm fine with changing the wording on that.
Yeah. Councillor Carpenter, okay with that?
Sure.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to have one. AI would be, so I would say the council, the corporation of Brantford. I think that then makes it very accurate. 2 and 3 likewise. And I see Councillor Wall nodding his head saying, yeah, that's cool. Thumbs up. All right, so let's call the vote on it.
Item 5.1 has carried on a recorded vote of 8-2. Those voting in favor, Councilors Weaver, Vanderstel, Slash, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis. Those opposed, Councilors McCreary and Martin.
All right, so let's look at resolution. We don't have any more. We don't have any notices of motion, at least on the agenda of this special city council. We do have some later this evening. So bylaws, first and second reading. Council Weaver, can you please move the motion for first and second reading of bylaw to confirm what we've done at this afternoon's meeting?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. We'll go into, let's see. The only resolution I have, Mr. Mayor, is 5.3 for tonight's agenda, and it's the application for the neighborhood plan. I actually don't see one for.
Yeah, so what it is, it's a very simple bylaw as we normally do. It'd be 187, 2020, simply to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of City of Brantford with respect to the special meeting held on November 10th, 2020, today.
So moved, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
All right, now do we have a seconder? Councilor Antosky is seconding. Any discussion on the bylaw? First and second reading, not seeing any. Madam Clerk, please take the vote on this.
The first and second reading of the bylaw has carried on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those voting in favor, Councilors Weaver, Vanderstel, Slash, McCreary, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis.
All right, so Councilor Celeste, can you please read the resolution third and final reading of this same bylaw?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it's moved by myself, seeking a seconder. The bylaw 187-2020 be taken as read a third time, be finally passed and signed by the mayor and clerk.
And the seconder, sorry.
Seeking one.
Councilor Martin, I see Councilor Martin raise his hand. Any discussion on third reading? No hands raised. Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
The third reading of the bylaw has carried on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those voting in favor, Councilors Weaver, Vanderstel, Slash, McCreary, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Tilburg, Wall, Mayor Davis.
All right. So council is therefore now adjourned to, I believe it's November 24th, unless there's a special meeting before then. But of course, Committee of the Whole will be convening this evening, 6 o'clock, with Councilor Carpenter in the chair and myself in the chair for the planning hearings. So see you in an hour and a half.